Hello, people. Welcome morning. Yeah, it's working. So basically, we are going to do a DNA update. So I was looking on my ancestral DNA um thing, and I found out that my ancestors are Jamaicans, African Jamaicans that were enslaved, and some of them were Jamaican Chinese. Now, I did see the Jamaican Chinese. No, I did see the Chinese ancestry on my mum's DNA, and mine, but it didn't relate it to Jamaica, and um, so I wasn't looking properly, because I got my DNA test from My Heritage, yeah, and the thing is, if you get your DNA test from My Heritage, they've got a group bit where they show you the groups. Oh, it's not going to let me show you. Yeah, it's not going to let me capture the screen, so I can't show you. Maybe I'll do another screenshot. So I'm just going to read from it because it's easier. So basically, from what it's so My Heritage, what they do is, so when they say you're Nigerian, Nigerian encompasses all the people in the world with Nigerian ancestors, even if those people are not in Nigeria now. So so some of the people who have Nigerian ancestors, and we're just going to focus on the Caribbean and Jamaica. So one of the things in Jamaica is one of the things that the British hi Cola. So one of the things that the British did in slavery was they put Igbo women, uh, they enslaved Igbo people, and they put them with a Khan men from Ghana, the region we now call Ghana, because obviously Ghana and Nigeria didn't exist at the time of the Atlantic slave trade. So they put Igbo Nigerian women with Ghanaian men to stop them revolting. That's one of the things, Massa did to stop slave revolts. Yeah. So I was just looking at my DNA. Now, I've taken a few ancestral tests, yeah. And one of the things that you have to understand with ancestral tests is if the percentage is smaller, um, they might exclude it. Because I know Sopho Lush is a British Jamaican, and she couldn't understand why some of her ancestral DNA tests were excluding her European ancestry. And they're saying they do that because it's a smaller percentage. That's all that's happening. It's not that you don't have European ancestors. They're just saying it's not a big percentage, so they're gonna put it out, and they like to concentrate on the African ancestry. But um, I had a feeling that I had Jamaican ancestors when I was looking at my ancestral test a while ago, and some of my fourth cousins were Jamaican, and I was chatting to them, but they were Jamaican American, and some of them were Jamaican British. Um, but I didn't look properly at the My Heritage breakdown. In My Heritage, they give you a breakdown of groups, genetic groups. So under Nigerian, they will put any group of people like Germans, Austrians, Dutch, Chinese that have mixed with Nigerian people in the Atlantic slave trade. That's what they do. Yeah. So that's why I didn't notice it. Yeah. So the majority of my Caribbean ancestors come from Barbados. Yeah. But some of them do come from Jamaica. And so it tells me the parish where my Jamaican ancestors came from. So it says Kingston, Jamaica, Claredon, Jamaica, St. Catherine's Parish. Yeah. And he's basically saying this is Eastern Jamaica. Now, I don't know much about Jamaica. The only thing I know is that Jamaican people can cook. Bob Marley's mum is Jamaican. The Maroons come from Jamaica, and if I eat too much Jamaican food, I'll be the size of a house. Yeah, that's all I know. I don't know too much, and they do reggae. Yeah, and they smoke a lot of marijuana, and the Rastas. That's all I really know about Jamaica. I don't know too much about Jamaica, and they have really good music, like that dancehall music and all that stuff. So I don't really know too much about Jamaica, but I did know that Nigerian people were enslaved in Jamaica. That's one thing I did know, but I didn't realize. I mean, I did know about Jamaican Chinese people. I've heard that there's Jamaicans that are Chinese. I know there's German Jamaicans too. I know there were some Germans that were dumped in Jamaica too, so I did know that. But obviously, I didn't think that my ancestors were Chinese Jamaican. Do you know what I mean? But now I can see it does say Jamaican Chinese. Yeah. Um, so that's cool because if you watch some of these videos, you'll see some proper Chinese people. They look proper Chinese, yeah, but they've got a proper Jamaican accent, yeah. Now, apparently, now another thing that's quite interesting about Jamaica is, um, one of the other Caribbean. There's a lot of Caribbean islands that are coming up as my ancestors. One of the thing with the Caribbean islands, these people are always island hopping. This is one of the thing. Yeah, these Caribbean people, they're always island hopping from one island to the next island to the next island, mixing up the DNA, and then they'll move and mix it up, mix it up, mix it up. Yeah, yeah, everyone likes Jamaica, Cubby Gold. Yeah, yeah, Cubby Gold and jerk chicken. Yeah, yeah, big up, yeah, yeah, yeah. Jamaican accent is strong. Whether it's American or British, you can hear it. Yeah, it's true, it's true. Yeah. So another place that came up on my ancestral test is Panama. Now we know Panama right now is in um, the news because Trump, Orange Man Trump, says he got a. It's going to be called. Did he say it's going to be the American Canal now? You know, America wants the Panama Canal back. So a couple of months ago, I came across some English speaking people from Panama, and what had happened is these people were Jamaicans, yeah, and they'd gone to work in Panama. So at the time of the Panama ship canal being built, if you look at where Jamaica is on the map, and I'm sorry I can't show you, it is near Panama, yeah. It's so it makes sense why English speaking Jamaicans would go to Panama and obviously and mix with each other and work there and stuff like that. So there's parts of Panama that speak English because of the Jamaicans that are and their descendants that are living there. So that was quite interesting stuff like that. Hi Danny, yeah, big up, hi, hey, big up Danny. Yeah, so it's a lot of island hopping. So yeah, it's really weird. So I could tell you some of the other islands that came up. So the main, let me see, I just want to concentrate on the Caribbean right now, and then I'll do another video, live stream, on the different islands. So another island that came up, like I feel like all the islands came up in this fucking ancestral test because some of these islands I've never even freaking heard of. Like, so the top 10, we've got Antigua and is it Bermuda, Antigua and Barmaruna. I don't know. Barbuda. Barbuda. I don't know. Antigua. I'm just gonna call it Antigua. That island, yeah. Saint Lucia came up. Then Jamaica's coming up again. What do you call it? The Caribbean Netherlands, Saint Martin's. That's coming up. Bahamas. It says Bahamas Long Island. It says Guyana. Obviously, we know that's South America, but that's classed as the Caribbean. Trinidad and Tobago's coming up on the ancestors. Cuba. What else is there coming up? Belize. Obviously, we know why Belize is coming up because Belize is a British colony in Central America, so that kind of makes sense. Martinique. I think is Martinique French people. I don't know if Martinique's French. What else is coming up? Oh, there's all these Surinam's coming up. Dominica. That's that little small Caribbean island where I saw black people being thrown up and forth, and the houses being thrown. When the tornado, I don't know if it's a tornado, something hitting that tiny little Caribbean island. They were just throwing the people. Mother Nature was just throwing the black people back and forth, back and forth. That's the type of place that you don't go in tornado season. Grenada came up. I've heard of Grenada, at least. Guadeloupe, is it Guadeloupe? Came up. I've heard of that place. I think that's French. There's a lot of French colonies. A lot of ancestors are from French colonies. Um, some of these places and the Dutch colonies I can't even pronounce. Let me get Google to pronounce these Dutch colonies in the Caribbean because yeah, I lived like 4 years in the Netherlands and I don't speak a word of Dutch except hoe hard het, goedemorgen, alsjeblieft, dankjewel. That's all the Dutch I know because everybody in the Netherlands, majority of people in the Netherlands speak great English. You will not need a word of um, Dutch. The only Dutch I picked up as was going to the supermarket. Yeah, that's the only Dutch I picked up. That is why I lived 4 years in the Netherlands and still can't speak fluent Dutch. Yeah. And I was doing an English job in the call center for Canon, so that's another reason why I didn't pick up because I was working full time. I'm not gonna like the 2 days I get off. I'm not gonna spend it in Dutch class learning how to learn fucking Dutch. Am I? Like, who really speaks Dutch in the world except a few Dutch colonies? Okay, so this Dutch colony is Curacao. Curacao. That's a Dutch colony that came up. And there's another Dutch colony that came up. The Dutch are absolutely everywhere, aren't they? Let's be honest. Honestly, they are absolutely everywhere. Um, what you call it? Like some of these places I've never even heard of. Aruba. That's on the ancestral test. Aruba. Oh, and there's another island. There's another Dutch island. Like fucking hell, man. Like I've never even heard of half these places. Bonaire, a Dutch island in the Caribbean. Like, has anyone ever been to these places or even heard of these places? Yeah, there's a lot of Dutch colonies. The Dutch colonies tend to be islands, though, don't they? A lot of them are islands, yeah. So yeah, these all these random places where the ancestors came from. Let me see. I know Veli said that St. Martin's is supposed to be a nice little Dutch colony, like because one side of it is the French. It's one island. One of it is St. Martin's for the French, and the other part of it's St. Martin's for the Dutch. But my ancestors come from the Dutch side of St. Martin's. Um, Grenada. Martinique. These are all French. Francois. Yeah. So I would really like. I'd like to go to Barbados, obviously, because my sister's was married to a Bayesian man, but obviously, sadly, he died. But yeah. Another place in the Caribbean that came up. Haiti. My ancestors are Haitian. Can you believe it? Haiti. I was like, fucking hell, Haiti. Like fucking hell. Like Haitian. That is like absolutely that's looking amazing. Like they're French as well. And that's a French colony as well, isn't it? Haiti. Another place that was interesting. Brazil, Sao Paulo. Yeah. And obviously I know there's lots of Africans that were enslaved in Brazil. But obviously, I didn't think that they were my ancestors, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? San Paulo. I've heard this. Isn't that where the? Oh no, it's at Rio de Janeiro. Where's the carnival? Is San Paulo where the carnival is? In fact, let me have a look. Do you know what I mean? And I remember meeting this Brazilian guy, and he goes, "Oh, you look like you're Brazilian." And I was like, "No, what you actually mean is I look like An Afro-Brazilian, that is what you actually mean. Do you know what I mean? Because there's, out of Africa, the biggest population of Africans in the world is Brazil. There's millions of people of African descent in Brazil. That's why if you've ever come across any Brazilians, and you're black, they're gonna mention, "Oh, you look like, I thought you were a Brazilian." Do you know what I mean? It's like, no. It's like, you mean you thought we were Afro Brazilian? Yeah, because bear warfare was happening in the region of Africa. It seems to be more Central Africa, the Congo. The Congo had an empire and they had this crazy ass king, and he was just carving up a smaller ethnic groups and amalgamating into his ethnic group, and people that were revolting who got caught up, he would just ship them off. They'd get shipped off. The Portuguese would come in, take them, or the Dutch would come in and take them, and the French would come in and take them. And that's how a lot of people of African descent ended up in Brazil. Obviously, because the Portuguese, there's Portuguese colonies in Africa are Angola. Yeah, Angola's a Portuguese colony. Um, what's the next? Mozambique's a Portuguese colony. I'm trying to think of any other African Portuguese colonies. So basically, that's what it is. And also, another thing that you got to understand about Portugal is Portugal. The Portuguese were the first Europeans to circumnavigate the whole of Africa. So that is why Lagos in Nigeria is a Portuguese word meaning, I feel here it means lakes, because there's a lot of water. There's a lot of islands in Lagos, and there's a lot of water. So when the Portuguese got there, um, when they were trading, they named it Lagos. I don't know what the native Yoruba name for Lagos is, but that is why it's called Lagos, because the Portuguese are the first ones to really circumnavigate the whole of Africa, and the first ones to really trade, not including North Africa with the Roman and the Greeks and the Turks. Yeah, I know they got there before the Portuguese, but when we're talking in context of the Atlantic slave trade, it's the Portuguese. So this is why you get, that's why um, the Portuguese come up, as many, and like people like me and lots of other Africans had Portuguese ancestors, simply because the Portuguese were the first ones to circumnavigate a lot of Africa. Do you know what I mean? And obviously, they mixed in with the people, etc., 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 yada 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 yada. We know the story, isn't it? Yeah. So there's a few places in the world I would really like to go. So in the Caribbean, I'd love to go to Barbados. I've got to go to Barbados. I'll go and follow my niece and nephew because their dad's Bayesian, British Bayesian. So I would really like to go to Barbados. Um, and Barbados. So basically, looking at sorry, going back to the Jamaican thing. So like the Jamaican ancestry is on my mum's side and my dad's side. So these Jamaican slaves are both on my mum's and dad's side. But looking at my mum's side, my mum is ancestors are also Jamaican Chinese. They're not just African Jamaicans, they're Jamaican Chinese. Obviously, I can't test my dad because my dad is deceased. I could test his auntie, no, his sister. If I ever get hold of her. So maybe one day if I get hold of her, I might test her because obviously they're gonna have the same DNA. They've got the same parents and stuff like that. But yeah, so I'm not too sure what was going on in China. Except I think was it the Opium Wars. It might have been the opium because I know the Chinese were indentured servants, weren't they? Which is another. It's just one ladder down from being a slave, isn't it? One ladder up from being a slave. So the Opium Wars, when the British were getting the Chinese addicted to opium, it's in the 19th century. Yeah, so that would make sense. Notably, the British and the French, the Opium Wars. So that would make sense why many Chinese people were fleeing China. Like, who wants to be addicted to opium? You've got to go and find peace. So it says the first Opium War was fought in 1839 to 1842 between China and Britain. The second Opium War was 1856 to 1860. So yeah, so this is around about the time. So my mum came up with like 3% Chinese. So when you get about 3%, it's basically telling you it's the 1800s where your Chinese ancestor came from. So it kind of makes sense why so many Chinese people would have to leave China, um, because of the political upheaval with the Opium Wars and stuff. Um, yeah. So so I think I'll probably have to do a series. I'm probably gonna have to do a series on it all because I do find it quite interesting. Oh hi. What's your name? I can't remember what his name is. Sing. YouTube proper. Yeah, Haiti has a French background. Yeah, Haiti. Yes. So with the Haitian thing, because my ancestors are Congolese, so I've got most people. I don't know. Maybe most people don't know. Like, if you're from Eastern Nigeria, um, where my ancestors are from, on the border of Eastern Nigeria and Cameroon. So Nigeria was a German colony. A lot of people don't realize that now. Parts of Nigeria were a German colony. A lot of people don't realize this. So basically, the northeast Nigeria, where they call the Borno Empire, part of that was German Cameroon, yeah, and then it was succeeded to Britain after World War One, where the Germans lost their colonies. Yeah, but obviously Cameroon was a German colony, and then obviously after World War One, obviously it became majority of it was taken by the French, but Britain took about, I think it's about 20% of it. So the people of Eastern Nigeria are related to Cameroonian people and Congolese people because they're mainly Bantu. They're a mix of Bantu people, South Africa, the Khoisan, also Maasai, you know, the Cushitic, meaning the Somali. They're all a mix of those people who are coming from East Africa, like 600, around 600 A. No, it's 600. Is it 600? Yeah, around 600 AD. And the Bantu, the Cushitic, and the Khoisan stopped migrating. So the Khoisan stopped coming from South Africa up into Central Africa, into West Africa, Nigeria, and the Bantu from Kenya, what do you call it, Somalia, all those Tanzania, they start migrating and end up in Cameroon and Nigeria. Um, and that's literally like my ethnic group is called the Bibio, and they're basically semi-Bantu. Which, and when they say you a semi-Bantu group, it basically means some of your ancestors are Bantu. That's basically all it means, and some of them are like pygmies, and some of them are like native Nigerian groups. Yeah. So we're obviously not the oldest, because like they say in West Africa, the original people of West Africa are pygmies. This is what they're saying. The original people of West Africa were pygmies. And the tall Africans that you see now, like me and other people, come from the Sahara, meaning the Nile Valley, Sudan, and Egypt, and those places, and East Africa. That is where they come from. And they've wiped out, the pygmies have been wiped out in West Africa. You only see pygmies now in Central African Republic, Cameroon, Congo, etc. They're no longer there in West Africa and stuff. Obviously, because they're mixed with all these tall Africans and stuff like that. But they still exist, though. It's nothing to cry about. They still exist. They're still up in the little rainforests in Cameroon and the Congo, hiding from all those tall Africans and stuff like that. But I don't know how long they're going to be able to do that because the Congolese government's cutting down the rainforest. So I don't know how long they're going to be able to hide out in the forest, hiding from modernity. Do you know what I mean? But wish them luck. God wish you luck. Because even the Amazon people are having the same problem, aren't they? They're hiding in the Amazon, trying to hide from, the so-called civilized people. And every time they wake up, there's another tree that's being cut down. So I don't know how long all these people are hiding in the forests and the jungle will last. But we're gonna, as Christians, we're gonna send a prayer for them and wish them well and stuff. But yeah, so basically, Eastern Nigerian people are mainly from South Africa and East Africa. Yeah. And you can tell that by the haplogroups because the haplogroup, like my haplogroup is O. My blood type. I mean not my haplogroup. I mean my blood type is O, and O blood type, O rhesus positive, is found in East Africa and South Africa. That's where the majority of O is found in Africa. So that tells you that's where majority of my ancestors are from, East Africa and South Africa. Yeah. So basically, what happens is because, like, my ancestors from Congo, what who Congo was colonized by the French and Belgium. Yeah. So that is why I have ancestors from these French colonies like Haiti, obviously because the French have, enslaved them in the Congo, you know, the Congo and like Gabon. Like some of my ancestors are from Gabon as well. And they've been enslaved there and being moved to the Caribbean, and then obviously they become Haitians. Yeah, so that's what you have to remember. Even though Nigeria is a British colony, you've got to remember it wasn't always a British colony. It was part of it was a German colony too. So and then obviously then all the trade. And you've also got to remember that the Dutch were traders. This is another thing. The Dutch used, even though Nigeria was never a Dutch colony, the Dutch have been trading in Nigeria and West Africa and Central Africa, for a long time, and South Africa as well. So yeah, obviously, and another thing is like because some of my ancestors are from South Africa. The minute you get South Africa, the Dutch pop up. Yeah. So my mum's mum is from Western Cape, Cape Town. Now, for people who don't know, Cape Town was a slave colony. Cape Town is a place that was built by slaves, African slaves, that the British and the Dutch took from other regions of Africa. And it wasn't just West Africa they took them from. They took them from East Africa. They took them from Madagascar, or other places. They also got indentured servants from China, from India, all those different people, and native Australians as well were all put in the Western Cape. So that's why all those different people also come up. If you've got ancestors from South Africa, that's why all those people come up and stuff like that. Now, I know a lot of people don't realize like that South Africa was a slave colony, Western Cape, yeah, but it was, yeah, and the Dutch were seen to be the first people to put slavery in South Africa, and then the British do the same thing, and the part. So when people concentrate so much on the apartheid time of South Africa, you've got to remember before the apartheid, it was slavery. That is what they had there. People were slaves. Yeah. So apartheid means nothing when you think about the hundreds of years that they've been enslaving, the Khoisan and other Africans in South Africa. Do you know what I mean? Prior to that, there's no slavery in South Africa prior to the arrival of the British and the Dutch. Yada yada yada. It is what it is. It is what it is. Yeah. But yeah, so I was quite surprised. That's another place I'd like. I would like to go to Cape Town. I want to go and go to Cape Town. I really like to go to Cape Town. In fact, I am going to go to Cape Town now. Trump has been anti tourists. I might as well go to other places and stuff. I vow to go to as many countries that pop up on my ancestral line as possible. Um, which is obviously going to take a lot of money. But yeah, so um, I'll probably do a little bit of investigation. I'll try and do a little bit of investigation into these little places in like Saint Catherine's in Jamaica. Saint Catherine's in Jamaica, like obviously like Jamaica's only like a little small island. I know like you know when you listen to Caribbean people, they're always arguing over whose island is bigger. Yeah, there was island like that, but Jamaica, like I was about to say it's a small island, but compared to Barbados and Saint Lucia, Jamaica's quite a big island, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Compared to all the other islands, like because Cuba's massive. Cuba is absolutely massive. Haiti and the Dominican Republic, they're both big islands. Uh, but yeah, so they're always arguing over whose island is bigger and stuff like that. Um, but the Bahamas, can you believe it? Bahamas and Bermuda. I am not going to Bermuda. All I know is the Bermuda. All I know is Bermuda Triangle. My black horse is not going to get lost on the fucking Bermuda Triangle. Do you know what I mean? And go into some vortex into some other timeline, parallel universe. There's no fucking way I'm going to go there anytime soon. But I would really like to go to Barbados. Barbados it sounds really nice and stuff like that. But yeah, so big thank you to whatchamacallit, Sofo Lush, because I didn't really think I had any ancestors from the Caribbean or the Americas until that ancestral test came back. And I was like, oh, why are there so many people? Why does it keep on going to the Caribbean and the Americas? But yeah, it just shows you, doesn't it? And I think one of the things that people have to remember that after the Atlantic slave trade ended and the British and the French and the Dutch emancipated their slaves, they didn't want to pay compensation. So that is why a lot of African people who were enslaved, people of African descent who were enslaved, just got up and left to go to Africa because they weren't going to sit there and wait on 40 acres and a mule and waiting on compensation that never came. Because we know the British, they compensated their slave owners, didn't they? They didn't compensate the slaves, they compensated the slave owners. So that's why so many people ended up in, you know, their descendants ended up in Africa. So one of the things I did look at was there was a mixed race guy called, what was his name? And he was from Jamaica. He was 75% white and 25% African. But he started a newspaper called the Anglo, I think it was the Anglo African in Lagos, Nigeria. Yeah. Anglo African paper. And what had happened is he'd first gone to America. And what had happened is the racism as a mixed race person. Yeah, this his name was Robert Campbell. Yeah, he was a Jamaican-born American immigrant. He arrived in Lagos with his family in 1865, intended to establish a settlement in Abeokuta, for black immigrants from the United States. With little interest during the American Civil War and local opposition, Campbell gave up on his plans and settled in Lagos. Yeah. Um, but so basically, his background is, from what I've read of this guy's. Anyway, he started a newspaper called the Anglo African, and it was published in the British colony of Lagos between 1863 and 1865. So now it makes sense as to why some of my ancestors are African in the 1800s, because this guy's a Jamaican, isn't it? I mean, not why some of my ancestors are Jamaican, because this guy Robert Campbell was trying to bring obviously Jamaicans and anyone else of African descent to Nigeria. Yeah. Anyway, if you read up on him, it basically says he was born in 1829, died in 1884. he migrated to the United States and then to Nigeria. He wrote books and published a newspaper. It says initially he was a printer and a trained teacher in Spanish Town. I don't know why they call it Spanish Town in Jamaica. Does anyone know why it's called Spanish Town? Did the Spanish get to Jamaica before? Oh, right. This guy came. This guy came. Oh, I think he might come from the same parish. My ancestors came from. It basically says Spanish Town is the capital and the largest town in the parish of St. Catherine's. Yeah, that's where my ancestors came from. St. Catherine's in Jamaica. Anyway, it says he was an apprentice to a printer, and his salary insufficient in the economic turmoil of the post-slavery Jamaica. He migrated to he emigrated to Nicaragua and Panama before settling in New York City in 1853. He worked as a printer before being employed as a science teacher and an assistant principal in the Institute for Colored Youth in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Ah, so he's one of these Pan-Africanist guys. It basically says he was a mulatto. He was born of a Scottish white father and a mixed race mother. So, yeah, so basically, he's basically like, the chances are he's like 75% white in it, because if his mum's got white in him, it says she's mixed race, but he doesn't really say what type of mixed race she is, so I don't know. She could be anything, couldn't she? She could be Chinese, for all we know. You know what I mean? Like, but she must obviously have had some African ancestry, because he wouldn't have fitted in Nigeria without having some. He wouldn't have been able to write the Afro angle. Yeah, he wouldn't have been able to write an Afro. No, the Anglo-African newspaper if he wasn't of African heritage. So obviously, I assume that his mixed race mother was African heritage herself, but his father was a white Scottish man. So this is how bad it was, like, in the times of slavery. Even if the majority of your ancestry was not African, and like this guy, you've only got 25%, you were still a slave. Yeah, that's what they did. They still enslaved them. And so it basically says he went to America, and the racism was too bad in America. So what does it say? He went to, where did he go first? It says Jamaica had a lot of economic turmoil after the abolishment of slavery in 1833, and cholera epidemics. So he was an apprentice at a printing shop before training as a teacher, and newly established normal school in Spanish Town. He worked as a parish schoolmaster in Kingston on a low salary, and worsened economic condition caused him to seek work abroad. He took his family to Central America, worked in Nicaragua and Panama. See, I told you, Jamaicans and Panama, man, bloody hell. Finding the conditions a little better than Jamaica, he moved to New York City. But it says Campbell found racist attitudes in New York worse than he had experienced elsewhere. Could you imagine? Yeah, and he couldn't look too African, could he? If he only had like, you know what I mean? Fucking hell, man. It's like he probably looked like having a Megan. You know, like, but who's 25%? You know, Ryan Giggs is 25% African, isn't it? Because his granddad is from Sierra Leone, but he's mainly of white Welsh ancestry. But they still get it bad too, you know. Anyway, so it said the racist attitudes in New York City in 1853 were worse. So man, he said he got up. He said the only work he could find was at a printing shop run by an Englishman, John Gray, an associate of an abolitionist, Louis Tappan. Yeah, from 1855, he was a science teacher and assistant principal at the Institute for Colored Youth in Philadelphia. So he was invited by Martin Delaney. Now, Martin Delaney is one of these he's a Pan-Africanist, but his ancestor, I think he said his grandfather was a slave in so it basically says Martin Delaney and Campbell in 1858 um, joined the Niger Valley Exploration Party, an exhibition to inspect land around Abeokuta in modern Nigeria, which is like southwest Nigeria, where the Yorubas, I mean, that Abeokuta is like Yoruba land near Lagos, around there, for potential settlement for Black Americans disenchanted with the level of racism in the United States. Oh, this makes sense why I've got African men ancestors. This is it. These are the people that brought my ancestors. This Martin Delaney and this Campbell guy brought them over to Nigeria. Um, it says Campbell was recommended to Martin Delaney by an artist, Robert Douglas Jr., and he was an African American artist from Philadelphia. So it says this Campbell, Robert Campbell, the mulatto, we call it mixed race now, people. He went on an exhibition of the region in 1859 to the 1860, and signed a treaty with the local chiefs to secure land for settlement. He returned to the United States of America in 1860. He wrote a few facts relating to Lagos, Abeokuta, and other sections of Central Africa, which was published in Philadelphia in 1861. And A Pilgrimage to the Motherland, an account of the journey along amongst the Yoruba of Central Africa in 1859 to 1860, published in New York in 1861, and it was reprinted in 1971. I might have to read that, you know. I really like to read that. I would like to read all that. It says that. Oh, this is your new profile picture. Someone says, believe it or not, Trump is anti anyone who isn't white. Yeah, we know. I know. But do you know what, to tell you honest truth? But he even threw in the Germans. I heard those German tourists got thrown into a detention center. And Trump's German, you know. The name Trump is from his German ancestor. I think he's got a great grandfather that's German, Trump. And he threw. I don't even think he likes the whites now, the white Europeans. Do you know what I mean? If they're not dancing to his tune, they threw that German guy that was going to marry that American white woman, didn't they? He threw that man into the detention center for 2 weeks, and now he's in Germany. Do you know what I mean? So even the white people that, you know, if you're a white European, Trump is not feeling you either. Do you know what I mean? I believe it or not, we have a Lake Michigan triangle in my state. A triangle? Explain what you mean. I've been to Illinois, I've been to Chicago, but I think Michigan is the next state, and I'm not really up on American states. So it basically says, so this Campbell guy, it basically says he wrote about prospective immigrants willing to go home to the land of their forefathers, by injustice restricts that they may find means not only develop the mental and moral faculties, but promote legitimate commerce and production of staples, including cotton, and supplied to the world chiefly by slave labor, with the hope of undermining slavery and the slave trade. So he wanted to promote. So this Robert Campbell, he wanted to create an industry of cotton, where people were paid. So you want to create cash crop cotton instead of using slave labor. He also hoped that these immigrants who worked as missionaries to Africa could bring black nationalism to a traditional European missionary work. Yeah, and this is another thing I never factored in. Whenever I think of missionaries in Africa, I always thought of like white people, white missionaries. But it's people like him, obviously, because I've got Indian missionaries, as my ancestors, but also some of the missionaries were Indians and Sri Lankans, and some of them were these mixed race people and some black people coming from places like Jamaica. Because this guy, he's Jamaican, but obviously he's mixed race, isn't he? So this is another thing, and it's kind of sad when black people are so anti Christianity, even though without Africa there's no Christianity, because Abraham and Moses, they all came from Africa, innit? Do you know what I mean? So I don't know, like, there's no Christ, there's no Africa without, there's no Christianity without Africa. But these the black nationalists, sometimes they like to forget that, you know what I mean? But so it's a pity that the story of like the black missionaries, the Indian missionaries, these mixed race missionaries is not told, because the way they tell you of the missionaries in Africa, they always show you a white man and a white woman, and not mentioning that there were obviously black and brown missionaries too. Do you know what I mean? So it's a pity. It's a real pity that. But stories always get whitewashed, don't they? Do you know what I mean? Like Christianity is always getting whitewashed. I mean, did anyone see that new pope now? I saw that out. You know that Black Madonna that they've got in the Pope in the Vatican, and that new Pope, he walks past that Black Madonna. The very fact that the Catholic Church is still trying to lie, for hundreds and hundreds of years, he's trying to tell us that Jesus is fucking white when he was a fucking black. Do you know what I mean? And you're holding on to that Black Madonna that's like 800 years old. Do you know what I mean? And you're still lying about it. Yeah, it just shows you the level of racism in Christianity in Europe. It's just ridiculous that you'd rather lie about it for whatever reason. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, that's not Jesus's fault, and that's not obviously because you obviously got Ethiopian Christians and stuff like that. But it's just what I'm basically saying, it's a whitewash of Christianity, because the Hebrews, they're African Asian people, because Africa extends into what they call Palestine, Arabia, them places. Yeah, what's whiting that place up is the Roman Empire and the Islamic conquest, when they conquered Europe and Asia, and they brought on all these white people. That's what's lighting the place up. That's why now they've and the Roman Empire. That's why now they try to detach the Middle East from Africa and claim that they call it the Middle East. Like that's a continent. Like it's not a continent. It's just a peninsula. But that's another story anyway. Let me not go on too much about that still. Anyway, but yeah. So it's a pity that the missionary story is always painted as white missionaries from Scotland, blah blah blah, Ireland, blah blah blah. Like there's no black missionaries, and there clearly was black missionaries, because this guy and mixed race missionaries like this guy, and so it makes sense as to why Christianity got spread in West Africa, and also Christianity spread in West Africa because it was counteracting the violent rise of Islam in West Africa, because those Arabs and those Africans like the Fulani, they were spreading Islam via the sword, and the Berbers. So when those missionaries came in, they spread Christianity. It was counteracting it. It was a buffer. Do you know what I mean? Because they were able to get weapons off these Christians, and all these Western European empires to fight off the violent Muslims in Africa. Yeah, but that's another story. I'll put a link to a Ghanaian man that talks about the violent spread of Islam in West Africa. If anyone wants to look at it, very very good book. But he basically says it's the Fulani in West Africa that spread Islam via the sword, and we know that anyway with their Arab Berber brethren as well. Yeah. Now, so basically, this guy, Robert Campbell, he creates a newspaper. When he gets to Africa, so he basically says he tried to establish a colony in Lagos. Well, a settlement. Actually, no, not a colony, a settlement. Yeah. So no, hang on. I'm losing my train of thought. I'm going off on one. It basically says the British missionaries already present in Abeokuta and Sir Richard Burton, the explorer and the British diplomat. Poor relations between the British and the Egba people resulting from the establishment of the Lagos colony and worsened by the British attempts to establish a consulate in Abeokuta in May 1865 also hindered Robert Campbell's plans to establish a colony. So in May 1865, Campbell abolished his plans to establish a colony and settled in Lagos instead. So Campbell soon found after his arrival, he was unable to make the cotton gin, but determined to start a newspaper. He established the Anglo-African as the first newspaper to be published in Lagos. The first edition appeared in 6th of June 1863 and the paper was published weekly until December 1865. The paper was a reasonable success but opposed by the British governor Henry Stanhope Freeman, who attempted unsuccessful to impose a tax upon it. Yeah. So it says that Robert Campbell was active in Literary and Scientific Society of Lagos and from 1865 became involved in a number of businesses. He was hoping to promote a commercial development in Lagos but was hindered by the continuous war between the tribes of the inland region which led to a blockade in trade along the river. Campbell was one of the number of Lagos residents who petitioned the colonial government to install a strong governor to exert power over the interior. He suggested Robert Rocklin Grover. Campbell died in Lagos in 1965, 1884. No, the 19th of January 1864. So this helps me understand how my Jamaican ancestors got to Lagos or Nigeria. So there's a lot of different people using Nigeria as a place to like pitch up and rest and stuff because they were getting too much of that racism in America. They said there was a cholera outbreak. They said there was a cholera outbreak in Jamaica. After the end of slavery, etc., etc. Yeah, so it's interesting. It's interesting. So there must have been bare Jamaicans getting dropped off in Nigeria in the 1880s. Do you know what I mean? So I didn't know that, people. I didn't know that. Oh, it's like the Bermuda Triangle, but only smaller. Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that, people. I didn't know that. Yeah. So, what else have we gonna say? We've got anything? Yeah. So, how long have I been chatting for now? I've been chatting that for a long time, about 52 minutes. So I'm gonna leave that there. Gonna do something. I'm going to strum my guitar and stuff. Oh, I've got to watch the Diddy case and stuff. Anyway, have a nice day, Cola, and everybody. Thank you for the people that dropped in. Big up to everybody. And laters. It's official. Betty's a Jambo. I'm a Jambo now. Big up to all my Jamaican cousins and ting. Do you know what I mean? Shout out to what's it? Aki and Saltfish, isn't it? Aki and Saltfish. But that should be my new thing. Aki and Saltfish. Aki and Saltfish. That's going to be my new motto. Aki and Saltfish. Laters, people. Laters.